Imola has been a legendary staple of motorsports for well over half a century and has been the site of some epic battles and infamous crashes. What kind of challenge will this large multi-class field face tonight? Will the prototypes be able to cut their way safely through the traffic? Will we finally see a repeat winner in GT Pro? Will Atterbury's success last week continue into Italy? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 5 of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Adam Lindgren in for Joe Peak, and with me in the booth today is Chad Irvine and DJ Clark. Hopping out of the cockpit and onto pit lane reporting for us is Cy Andra. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari may have returned to the Formula One calendar for the first time in decades last year, but its rich history and challenges date back much further. To find out more, let's take you down to our track guide.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
You saw a couple laps and some description of this beautiful track, but DJ, why don't you tell us how these cars are going to handle this curvaceous track?
Well, Adam, this track is difficult to master when you are running a hot lap, and with 3 different classes of cars on track, it is going to be all the more difficult. It is all going to be about compromise here today, both in terms of where you deal with faster or slower cars on track, as well as finding the compromise lines in and out of the chicanes that make Imola so absolutely famous. Now, for our prototypes, they're going to really have to watch out as the high curbs around Imola can come back to bite these prototype cars, and we've talked about this before, that they are not big fans of running over those curbs. For the GT drivers, though, they're going to be having to look in their rear view mirror quite often, as well as through their front windshield. There's going to be good passing for everybody all over, but you've got to constantly be aware of where those prototypes are. Everybody's going to be praying that you can make a good pass going down this curving front straight, but if you catch somebody up through Agua Minerale or maybe even through Tosa and Piratella, it could get very hairy very fast.
It definitely can, DJ, but one thing that's still fairly hairy for those drivers up at the top is the championships, and especially for the prototypes. Here's the prototype standings, and we're going to start from the bottom because Paul Darling is the one who won last week's race, his first win of the season, with Billy Smith getting second and Jason DeVries getting third. That brought them all up closer to Joshua Wolf and David A. Williams. David Williams had his last race. That last race was the first race where he did not get a podium, so he's looking to bounce back from that this week. But DJ, you've got the GT Pro standings up for us as well.
I do indeed, and the top three were your top three finishers last week out. The battle of the bees that we joked about, Ross Booth, Kevin Binkley, and Brian Bennett, but this is really a two-way battle between Booth and Binkley. Binkley has not been on the podium this entire year. That's right. He has 2 third places, 1 second, and a win last week out, whereas Booth has 2 seconds and a win to his name. So that battle, very, very fierce, but that battle for third, absolutely heating up as well with Bennett, Pies, and Thibault. Very, very close in contention. So a battle of 2 different halves here.
And then, Chad, you have the GTM standings for us as well.
You are correct. Talk about guys making the podium. Kevin Santana leads the championship right now, not missing a podium, the only driver in class to do so. 12 points back is Atterbury, who took his first win of the season last week. Santana's been super clean, but Joey Atterbury that you see there running just 12 points behind Santana actually races over in IMSA GT, Continental Tire, Pirelli, and a couple other series as well, with Ryan Wash 32 points back in third. Then just 6 points behind him is Jeremy Rhodes and Dale Green, 10 points off of fourth. So really a tight battle for third as well, but Atterbury just 12 points back of Santana's the fight to watch.
Yeah, and the team standings are fairly close as well. Currently, DMG United currently leads the team standings with 181 points. 22 points back is Vieira Satellite Racing, then only 29 points back, and that is the Lap Rats Racing crew. All of these teams very hotly in contention. Then 47 points back of the lead is going to be Autobahn East, with Autobahn North back about 9 points from there. But look for that battle for second to be very hot, and see if DMG United falls a little bit this week. It could really cause a dent in their championship hopes, but they have a little bit of a buffer right now. But DJ, why don't you take us through the race details tonight?
Well, Adam, as we mentioned, we are here at Imola for the 5th of 14 rounds in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. It is a 60-minute race, 3 different classes of cars. The LMP2s, they're all going to be running those relatively new Dallara LMP2s, and for the GT Pros, they have a choice of 3 cars. The new BMW M8, the new Corvette, and the old-school Porsche 911 RSR. Also, for the GT-AMs, the Mercedes are available, as well as the Audis and the GT3s, but don't forget about the Lamborghini popping its way in there too. It is a new car, and a lot of drivers choosing it here at Imola. Now, the BMW GT3 also available, as I'm hearing in my ear. Now, do not forget, we have no fast repairs to anybody, so if you make a mistake, you are out of the race. There is also a 35 incident limit for this hour-long race. That could come into play, as it is very easy to fall afoul of track limits here at Imola.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, right now, we have the LMP2 class, our prototype class, the Autobahn series calls it, out there doing qualifying. 8 minutes left as the clock ticks by right then the 8-minute mark. Currently, Paul Darling holding provisional pole over Billy Smith and Julio Romagnolo. And in the GT LM category, the GT Pro category that already finished qualifying, Kevin Binkley is taking the pole in that position. And you know, Chad, Ryan Wash in the GT AM category looks like he's going to take his first pole of the season.
Yeah, after kind of some struggles, but not really. Fourth, second, fourth, his first 3 finishes on the season for Wash. And then last race at Spa, he actually did not race, so kind of struggling in the points there. But overall, fourth, second, fourth for him. It's good to see him be top of the timing charts, getting the pole here today.
There's Billy Smith crossing the line. A slower lap for him, and it wouldn't have counted either. He actually got a little bit of an off track up at Piratella that lap, so unfortunately I'm falling a little bit behind. Here's Kevin O'Keefe, who's been having a little bit of an up and down season, but a 118, unfortunately that lap didn't count either, so struggling with off tracks himself. Looks like this is going to be a place where incidents, like you said, may come into play, DJ, but also just trying to get a clean lap here in qualifying is proving to be difficult, even for some of our top runners.
It is, Adam. You know, there are so many places to run afoul of those track limits. You can see one of them right there coming out of those last hairpins there. Very, very difficult. Also, going up through Piratella, very easy to run wide. It's not so much about cutting a corner necessarily as it is of just pushing over the line. As we see there, Joshua Wolf unable to improve on his time as he comes around, but Jason DeVries coming to the line now.
Yeah, one driver who has yet to set a decent time is Jason DeVries, currently down there at the back of the pack. A 1:48.535 is looking like, wow, that's quite a slow lap for him, considering that puts him in and amongst the GTD field. So hopefully with the 6 minutes left, he can get another time in. Here's Bradley Haley coming across the line, trying to improve on a 1:31.8. Crosses the line, a 1:31.5, so that is a 3/10 benefit, and it's going to jump him up to 7th position.
He's got to be pretty happy with that one. As you see there on the left of your screen, Robert Tinsley putting in a good lap. Billy Smith looking like he is calling off his lap after that. Carbonneau coming across the line. That looks like a warm-up there. And as you see these LMPs dive down there, you see Kevin O'Keefe coming across the line, unable to improve.
And we have our pit reporter, Cy Andra, who is going to talk to us a little bit about strategy and how these guys are going to be managing strategy here around Imola, especially with the pit stops. Cy?
So the pit strategy for this race is pretty straightforward. It's going to be a one-stop race for all 3 classes, but the biggest thing is going to be when you pit. As you know, as many people know, Imola isn't a very easy class for multi-class traffic. There is a lot of weird chicanes, kinks, and sort of corners where the LMP2s and the GTEs are going to get held up by slower traffic, and where some of the GTEs and GT3s are going to be forced out wide or substantially slowed down by LMP2s trying to get past. So I think the trick is going to be where and when you pit. Do you pit right at the end of your fuel tank and risk getting held up by traffic on your in-lap or your out-lap, or do you try to pit a little bit early and try to get yourself around the traffic so you don't have to lap them one extra time compared to all the others? It's worth upwards of 6 seconds if you get it right, so it's going to be interesting to watch and see where the strategies play out.
It definitely is. We're going to keep our eyes on that, and we know that you'll keep your eyes on that and see whether anyone has any troubles in the pit stops that could add to their woes as well. We're seeing Robert Tinsley cross the line, about 2/10 off of his fastest qualifying time. Now, right now, Paul Darling has that provisional pole, but behind him is Robert Tinsley, who's back by about 4/10 of a second, and then it is all within about 1/10 of a second from Tinsley on back to Carbonneau for 5th position.
It really is, Adam, and it's going to be a fierce, fierce battle. Paul Darling does look like he has a relative lock on it, but we've seen guys been able to really throw in some mega laps over the course here, so don't count anybody out until the checker flag flies. But yeah, this battle for P2 pretty much absolutely fierce and intense, just showing you the absolute skill in all of these LMP2 drivers.
We can also see how much they're on the edge. Jason DeVries spun on his last flying lap, so he's currently on another out lap, as we see Mark Wilson, the car who's currently qualified ahead of him, crossing the line, goes a 1:33.2. That's about a second off of his fastest time. But Jason DeVries really struggling right now, 3rd in the championship, but can't seem to get this qualifying underneath him. He would start at the back of his class at this point, and that's not a good points day for him.
No, it's not, and he needs to definitely try to get some better points in to try to claw his way up the standings. We watch Romagnolo coming across this very, very twisting straightaway, not able to improve his time here. One of the things that seems to be coming into a factor is traffic here in this qualifying, as some of the slower LMP2 cars getting in the way of some of the hot lappers and slowing them down. So traffic even becoming a problem in the single class of the LMP2.
Yeah, one of the things that isn't mentioned that often is how narrow this track actually is. It's very winding and narrow with a line that changes quite often, as you mentioned, DJ, in the beginning of this session. And these drivers can all struggle a little bit trying to get around slower cars. And with 3 classes out here, especially with the speed difference between the GTDs and the LMP2s, when they get mid straightaway, we're going to see a lot of trouble.
We certainly are, and you talked about the sort of twisting and narrow nature of the track. One of the things that does make this track very unique in that regard is the fact that there's really only one line through the majority of these corners, looking at things like Tamburello and Agua Minerale. If you try to go offline to go for a pass there, it's a one-way ticket into the grass or the gravel, so these guys have to be very, very careful.
Absolutely. That's Mark Wilson coming across the line, improving from a 1:32.9 to a 1:32.6. Joshua Wolf is actually managing to improve, so it looks like a couple of drivers starting to put in faster times now. Robert Tinsley just starting his latest flying lap right now. So we're seeing quite a few drivers come across the line now. Next up is going to be Juliano Romagnolo, as we're seeing now. He's coming around a 1:31.198 to beat. He's going to cross the line. He is about 3/10 slower. Let's see whether Jason DeVries actually puts in his first flying lap of the day. It's going to be a 131.215. Is it going to stick? Yes, it is. That puts him up to 6th.
That's a good run for him. He's going to be happy to be starting up that far, but I have to think that Jason's going to want to be higher up than that. Luke Carbonneau here coming across the line. He is on a warm-up lap, currently sitting pretty in second place, so that'll be a front row start if things hold as we now watch Kevin O'Keefe coming out of that last corner.
Less than a minute to go in this qualifying session. Everyone who is starting this lap is starting their final lap. They have 1 minute 30 seconds to go in the qualifying 1 minute 30 second lap times with less than a minute to go, which means everyone starting here is going to be starting their final flying lap. They do have time to finish their laps after the clock winds down to 0.
And goodness gracious, you saw it there on your screen. Paul Darling putting in an absolutely blistering lap. That puts him 0.8 of a second up on his rival of Luke Carbonneau. Really, really great time there from Darling.
It's sorry to cut in here, guys, but Jason DeVries, he's put in a banker lap that got him to 6th quick. He just spun out on his final flying lap, and that's going to do it. So he's going to lock up 6th if nobody bumps him off that spot.
Thanks for that, Chad. Here's Robert Tinsey coming across the line. Leif Peterson as well trying to come across the line. He improves his time, Peterson does, and there's Tinsey improving to a 131.094. Good enough for second position. So Luke Carbonneau currently in 3rd right now, only about 0.4 back. There's Romagnolo coming across the line. Can he jump up and improve his position? The answer is no, about 0.5 back, and the checker flag has waved. So everyone who did not start a lap, starting with Romagnolo, they're done.
Well, and I have to say I feel bad for Carbonneau as he had an off track and is not going to count. Looks like here comes Robert coming across through that tricky Variante Alta, able to get it down and get the power down.
So only 3 cars left on the track now. Robert Canchin, we have, as well as Mark Wilson, Leif Peterson, and Robert Tinsey. So here's Canchin coming through. Oh, did he clip the grass out there and get an off track? We're going to find out. Looks like Robert Tinsey has an off track, so he's not going to complete his lap. That leaves it to Mark Wilson and Leif Peterson. Let's see whether or not Robert Canchin's lap's going to stick here.
Even if it does stick, that's not fast enough. Yep, there we go.
So next up is going to be Leif Peterson and Mark Wilson, both of these drivers. Mark's going to be the first one to cross the line to see whether or not he can improve his time. He's currently in 13th. Leif Peterson's off at one of the final corners of the circuit. So Mark Wilson is going to be the last car to cross the line. Is he going to beat his 132.462? The answer is barely, but it's not going to improve his position. He ends up in 13th.
One of the most frustrating things in the world as a driver there, Adam, to know you got faster and to not see yourself move up the charts. So a little bit of a heartbreak there for Mark.
And that's going to take us to our starting grid, starting with pole position, Paul Darling, a full 0.8 of a second ahead of Robert Tinsey, who comes in on second on the first row. Luke Carbonneau is going to start off in 3rd with Billy Smith in 4th. Row 3 is going to go to Julio Romagnolo and Jason DeVries starting off in 6th today. Joshua Wolf's going to start off 7th with Bradley Haley in 8th, with Carter Kundinger 9th. Kevin O'Keefe starting off in the 10th position with Leif Peterson in 11th. Robert Canchin, 12th position. Mark Wilson's going to start off 13th today, with David Warner in the 14th position.
Lining up on the first of the GTE category is going to be Kevin Binkley, beating his title rival Ross Booth, but just ever so barely by about 1/10 of a second. Behind them, Garcia is going to line up in row 9 outside of Thibault, and then Paul Slavanik and Paul Lindsay will make up the 10th row here today. Behind them, Brian Bennett, 3rd place in the championship, will be starting off 7th in class, followed by Stephen Jeffrey. Mo Islam in 9th, followed by Olivier Turcotte in 10th. Christopher Pies in 11th, followed by Vince Bow, and Eric and Tilly behind them in 13th, with Dominic Dornenberg in 14th. Shane Hunter will line up for 15th in class, followed by Dino Topic. Then Jerry Muller and Jimbo Pfeiffer will make up the rest of your GTE field.
And finally, back in the GT3 category, Ryan Walsh takes the pole position in class there, with Kevin Santana and Joey Atterbury in 3rd place there in class. And all 3 of those guys are the top 3 in the driver's points for their category as well. Ryan Robertson takes 4th, followed by Luke Schmidt and Eric Gitapro in 5th, and then Joe Stiefel, followed by Mark Kidrowski and David Perry starting in 20th row overall. And we go back to Chris Sherburne with Sean Reese next to him, then Dale Green, Joey Trungala, Matt Owens, Sheldon Walshin, and Mike Major shotgun in the field with a couple drivers back behind him, Mark Scheidel and Cody Franklin in the back of the pack. So 50 cars out here today, and we are set for some good racing.
It's going to be a very interesting race for sure for all of these drivers. One of the tightest tracks, one of the most interesting tracks for multi-class. Sai, you want to give us some insight into the LMP2s and some of the different setups they have going?
So right now, well, in the lead up to the race as well, my teammates, you'll see on track, specifically Jason, David, and Paul, they were all debating the pros and cons of running medium downforce and high downforce. There aren't a lot of passing options on this track. The main one is into turn 1 after that long back straight, but the rest of the track is very high downforce. So the question is, do you want to be the leader and run away on high downforce? Or rather, do you want to be the leader and run away on low downforce and nobody can pass you? Or do you want to be the chaser on high downforce who can struggle to pass but can stay real close and take advantage of anything that happens?
Well, there's definitely some different strategies to be played, but Paul Darling, as we see the GTDs start to pull away, Paul Darling has already exited the final corner and the pace car is right about to pull off. Paul Darling will be released to start this race. He's going to continue to wait as we hear the siren off in the horn in the caution lane. Paul Darling's waiting quite a while, and he jumps right before the green flag would fly. He gets a good jump on Robert Tinsey. Billy Smith Jr. and Luke Carbon are going to be side by side, but it looks like it's going to be Billy Smith who's going to take that position. Jason DeVries currently in 5th position with Julio Romagnolo with a bad start in 6th, but let's jump back to that GTLM start.
In GTLM, Binkley did hold up the field, but not nearly as much as Darling did. But there's a real battle developing now between Graciera and Booth as they go down into turn 1. That tricky kink down into Tamburello. They are too wide behind, trying to take that around. Is the ball in Slavinik. They seem to be able to sort themselves out. Nobody having a real problem there.
We saw a huge jump for Ryan Wash off the jump here in GT3s, then Santana. Atterbury forces it too wide as they go into the first braking zone of the day. And it's going to be Wash, then Atterbury, then Santana as they come through turn 2.
Looks like most everyone's keeping it clean here on this first lap. Paul Darling out to a 0.4 of a second lead over Robert Tinsey. Then we have Billy Smith and Luke Carbonneau tucked in behind him. Jason DeVries currently in the 5th position in the prototypes. All these prototypes starting to string out a little bit. Looks like everyone's going to be taking a little bit calm here to start with. Closest battle is going to be between Julio Romagnolo and Jason DeVries. DeVries up to the 5th position, having passed Romagnolo, who had a terrible start.
Yeah, Romagnolo absolutely falling like a stone there, but he is coming back hard right now on the tail of Jason DeVries as they dive into Ravazza 1 and 2. DeVries really looking like a cork in the bottle here, backing up all the cars behind him.
Absolutely. We'll see whether or not DeVries can get going once again. We see him on screen now in that multicolored red and blue machine with Romagnolo tucked in behind in the neon yellow or green, depending on what kind of eyesight you have going. Romagnolo with a great draft. He's going to look to the outside of DeVries, try and make this pass going, but DeVries outbreaks him into the corner, but can he hang on to it? Yes, he can. Romagnolo takes a little bit too much of the curb on the exit, can't quite get the speed to pass.
And Adam, that's one of the few ways you can affect a pass here is just trying to poke your nose out and force the driver in front of you into a mistake. We talked about it a lot last week and the week before that. It's very, very effective if you can do it right. So Romagnolo really thinking it out well.
Look at this gap that they're got ahead of those 2 seconds between Jason DeVries and Luke Carbonneau up ahead. So unfortunately, this is going to keep compounding. But aside from that, it looks like we have a pass going on for 8th position between Joshua Wolf and Carter Kundig. And Carter Kundig is actually pushed off track there. He goes extremely wide there through Piratella.
Very aggressive move there from Joshua Wolf, getting his elbows out very hard in the braking zone and pushing Carter Cunningham off the track. Cunningham doing a great job to be able to hold it together.
Unfortunately, he lost about 4 positions due to that particular incident, but let's take us back to the leader of the GT3, the GT3s we got going on right now. Wow, a big wreck happening in the background, Chad.
Yeah, and just as we jump to this action, Santana and Robertson were really close there as they crossed the start-finish line, and he lost it, Robertson almost made contact with Santana, had to get out of the throttle a lot. Let's go over to the replay. This is Santana in the blue car, Schmidt coming up on the outside, and he doesn't have the optimal line. Santana tries to hold it there, and they just ding doors as they go through this right-hander. It looks like catching the curve there was Schmidt, and that sends Robertson around.
Yeah, while that was going on, Paul Lindsay had a self-spin, unfortunately, in the GTLM, so that set him back towards the back of the pack. Jason DeVries recently just got passed by Imola, who just made the pass on him in turn 1 in the prototype, so things starting to crack off here as they get back onto the front straightaway. There we see Imola up ahead of DeVries. DeVries starting to fall back here. Just looks like he's not happy with this track, DJ.
No, it really doesn't, but we're going to pop back here for a second to the leader of the GTEs here. This shaping up as a battle with your two championship contenders. That is Kevin Binkley leading Ross Booth, while Booth just stalking behind in that red Corvette.
Absolutely, Ross Booth looking very, very good on corner entry. He seems to be able to rotate that car well through the corner. Binkley struggling a little bit to get that thing rotated. It seems like the front end just wants to keep plowing through the center of the corner there at Tossa, but here we go through Piratella. Let's see whether or not they both have the corner. It looks like Binkley's got that corner down a little bit better, but Ross Booth's just not, he's refusing to let go right now.
No, Booth just wants to keep this as close as possible. Ooh, a little bit wide there up through the second part of Agua Minerale, and a little bit of overcorrection on the back. That's going to cost him a couple of tenths as they make their way down towards the Variante Alta. But both of these cars, I think, just trying to figure out where they are feeling the best. It's a long race here at an hour at Imola. It's going to take a lot out of you. And I think if I'm Ross Booth, I want to keep Kevin Binkley in my eyes, but I don't want to lose too hard.
We have a battle for P3 in this class, though. This is between Marc-Antoine Thibault and Brandon Garcia right now. And Thibault really starting to put the pressure on as they exit the last corner onto the front straightaway. This is a perfect opportunity to pass. Well, let's see whether or not the BMW has the pole.
And yeah, this is the perfect draft opportunity. That Beamer tucking up right behind of the Corvette, seeing what he can do. I don't think that Beamer looks like it has the top speed to really compare with the Corvette here at this moment. He may have to get it done to the twisty sector 2 of the track.
We had huge issues just a lap ago in the GT3s. It was Mike Major clipping the grass, going door to door and slamming hard into Trungale. They also caught up one other car in the incident. That was Matt Owens. Barely able to avoid with Schneidel, but there was a lot of incidents back in the back of GT3s.
It was happened about a lap ago, but Brian Bennett looks like he's had an off himself right now in P12 in the GTLM class. This is the 161 car. Brian Bennett looks like he managed to keep it off the wall pretty well, but yeah, this was unfortunately just clipping the grass on the exit of the corner. He's fallen from 7th all the way down to 14th now because of that incident.
And that's what Imola will do to you, Adam. If you set one toe over the line, you are out of it. It's what the Formula One drivers this past year talked about as an old school track that punishes any sort of mistake that you offer up.
And it looks like Mark Andressi just made a move on Eric Ojo-Drapeau, Chad?
Yeah, those two teammates were fighting very hard. We're going to go to the replay here as it was Kudrowski and going through across the start finish down this long straightaway under the braking zone. It might just be a teammate faster than the other because it looks like they were just nose to tail right here, and Kudrowski just going to get around Dupro and get the move done.
Yep, there's the move right there onto the inside of Villeneuve as they go through the 5 and 6 there. And as we come back live, actually, Thibault's making a move on Garcia right now through turn 1. And a little bit of contact. Actually, Thibault was just turned around for a moment. Garcia is able to hang on to it as well. But those two guys just got together. Gonna have the replay up right now as they went through turn 1. This is Tamburillo that they're going to duck through. It's a really challenging sequence to go through side by side. There's a little bit of contact between the two of them on the exit right there.
Yeah, as I said, there's really only one line through those corners, and trying to take it too wide there is a very, very aggressive move. Not sure if it's one I'd advise, especially this early in the race.
So just an update on our leads. We got Paul Darling up ahead of Robert Tinsey in the prototypes by about 2 seconds. Kevin Binkley right now up ahead of Ross Booth in the GTLMs by about 6 tenths. And then Ryan Walsh and Joey Atterbury separated by 1.5 seconds. But here is Paul, and they're already starting to navigate through this back of the GTD field.
This is the heart and mouth moment here, Adam, trying to figure out the lines as they go through. Paul Darling doing a very good job to time those passes just right there. You see one of those slower GT3s getting out of the way as they make their way up through Tosa, going to stick it down to the inside of the Lamborghini and get up there. He's going to catch those next two, though. That's going to be a problem, getting to them right near at the top of Piratella.
Absolutely. So as he comes in, he's going to go through the apex of Piratella, and on the exit, he's going to be blocked up a little bit by these GTDs. This is Gojo Drapeau and Kadrowski as he navigates them fairly effectively. He's left Robert Tinsey in the dust, gaps up to about 3 seconds, but we're going to duck back to another battle. This is for 5th position between Romagnolo, DeVries, Wolf, and Haley.
Yeah, this battle absolutely getting more and more intense. They get very close to that GT3. As there they come flying down towards Variante Alta. There you see him working, trying to get by, not able to do it at this point. Is Romagnolo trying to hold it on? I don't know how they kept it together through that AstroTurf.
That's Lee Peterson, who's off in the background, as well as Luke Schmidt in the GTDs. So this multi-class already starting to cause some chaos. But wow, look at this action. Look at that. Oh my goodness, that was Joshua Wolf getting spun. I believe that was by DeVries. Oh no, that was Romagnolo.
That was Romagnolo getting into the back of him. I think he got checked up by one of the GTDs in front. Romagnolo coming on the radio right now, giving a little bit of apology.
Here's a little replay of this action. This is one of the most unfortunate moments. Yeah, there you see it right there, and just a little bit too deep into the corner. Romagnolo couldn't pull out of it, unfortunately, but Carbonneau back quite a few positions, now trying to make it up through Tamburello. But man, this multi-class really starting to cause some chaos for everybody, but the battle for 8th position still on in the LMP2s. Look at that. Carter Kundinger able to navigate through everybody and get up there. Kevin O'Keefe's going to try and challenge him back. This is absolute chaos. These classes are not separated at all yet, and it's just becoming chaos on set.
Oh, and an absolutely amazing job there from Kundinger, being able to navigate through that traffic. I thought for sure he was going to get held up and fall into the hands of Kevin O'Keefe behind him, but not so. Now working his way through Piratella, getting the power down nice and easy.
And sorry to interrupt, but Marc-Antoine Thibault has spun. He's all the way back down in 11th position now in the GTLMs, and this was when he was battling with Kevin Binkley for the lead. And now he's battling right now next side by side with Dominic Dornberg, as Dornberg tries to cut him off into Tamburello. It looks like he's going to get the job done, but yeah, oh wow, Thibault with a great exit. Is going to try and fight back on the outside, and he gets contact again. They're both going to lock up to try and avoid each other. That was Brian Bennett who was able to make it through. Oh my goodness.
And Antilli doing a good job to fight his way up through there, and he is now up through. We're going to watch this back on replay very quickly. You see absolutely amazing over-under work here from Thibault, knowing when to put that compromise down in the first corner, and then just runs wide and right into the side of him. Very, very rough racing.
This is the kind of chaos that they were fearing when they came into this race initially. Everybody just trying to navigate through this without getting wrecked, but it's so difficult on such a narrow track that changes driving lines so often. As we take a look once again at the battle for 11th here, these GT LMs are still, these GT Pros still very, very aggressive right now.
Nobody giving any quarter, but we're going to jump back. We're going to stay here, excuse me.
Yeah, this battle is just too good to leave right now. The battle for 11th position. Everything just so intense all over the track right now, and it's in every class as well, Chad. The LMP2s cutting through the GTDs. How did that affect those GTD battles?
The top 5 in GT3 are very spread out. No car in the top 5 close to about 3 or 4 seconds from each other. But then back in 6th place is David Perry, just trying to hold off Chris Sherburne. Right behind him is Dale Green as well. So basically 6th through 9th, they're all nose to tail as they're still trying to allow this faster prototype traffic to come through.
Prototype traffic always seems to have a knock-on effect towards the slower classes whenever they try and navigate through. Wow, just a couple of moments to catch our breath here. There's not going to be that long, though, because as everyone continues to stack up, look at this battle right here in the GTDs. This is that battle that we were mentioning with Dave Perry leading this group with Chris Sherburne, Dale Green, Sean Rees, Joey Trungill, all tucked in behind him from 6th all the way down to 10th.
Yeah, and up at the top of the class is Brian Walsh. Still, he qualified pole, and he's pulled about a 4-second lead over Atterbury. And then he's got 4 seconds to Santana, and then 8 seconds back to Kadrowski.
Oh.
They're spread out very far.
Here's a battle between Luke Carbonneau and Kevin O'Keefe as they go through Tamburello for one more time. And look at this. It's so close between these drivers as they exit the corner. They're going to be almost side by side as they head towards Villeneuve. They are going to be side by side. Nice pass there from Bradley Haley on Kevin O'Keefe, who seems to be falling back a little bit. He might have picked up some damage from some of the contact that was made as they went through the GTD traffic, but Kevin's not giving up yet.
he's not giving up and running almost into the back there of Bradley Haley, doing exactly what I was talking about, just carrying mega speed through Villeneuve. Looks like this is going to settle down for the briefest of moment, but that is Dino Topic right there in front of them in the GTD. That's going to hold a few of the drivers up as now Haley tries to work their way around him. Don't want to do this through Aguilera Rally.
Oh, Kevin has to back out of it, unfortunately. This is going to mean... Oh, and that's Carter Kundinger who's off up ahead of them. Yeah, so... No, that was Robert Kanchan who was off ahead of them. So these LMP2s are struggling to stay on track as well, even when they don't have the traffic.
That was actually...
That was David Williams who was off, unfortunately. So... As we continue to watch here, this has been a very intense race. Paul Darling, by the way, an update on his lead. He's currently opened the gap up to 0.7 of a second. But look at this, we've got a battle for P6 in the GTLM class, actually P5. This is led by Steven Jeffrey, Mo Islam, Christopher Pies, Vance Bao, Olivier Turcotte, pardon me, all tucked in underneath about 3 seconds.
And I gotta say, Adam, compared to the rest of the field, these guys are proceeding along nice and orderly. Nobody really trying to make any sort of crazy moves on each other at all, which is a welcome change of pace. But that could be changing relatively quickly as the leaders are starting to catch up with now the GTEs. So watch for that same level of insanity we saw in the GTDs coming up here, and I would say less than a lap or two time.
Absolutely. Paul Darling is only a couple of corners back. He's just going through Autominarelli right now, approaching Variante Alta, and we're going to jump on board with Paul Darling as he's going to start to navigate through these guys. The first car he's going to approach is Brian Bennett, riding on the roof of Paul Darling right now, our race leader.
And here, this is a great example of just the closing speed. You can see as that LMP2 gets up to full tilt, just how fast he closed. And then look there through Ravazza, how close it is. Now, he's going to get very lucky here in this overtake. This is exactly where you want to do it, on a straightaway. He's able to get that dispatched very quickly. But as he starts to eye up the road, that battle we were talking about earlier for P5, that's going to be a real headache for Paul Darling.
Decent amount of those folks seem to be fuel saving a little bit. Here's that battle. Paul Darling now only about 2 seconds behind. He's going to catch them as they duck through, probably as they get to Piratella is where he's going to get them. Either that or it might be Tosa. We're going to see. Actually, it's going to be Tosa because he's closing very quickly. But here's Steven Jeffrey currently in that 5th position, up ahead of this long line of GT cars. Here comes Paul Darling, and you can just see him going through Tosa behind these guys. He's going to start cutting through this field.
He is, and this is the worst spot on the track for him to catch him. There you see, gets nice behind him in there in Piratella, being very calm. Little bit of a twitch there for Vance Bao, up ahead. Now he's got to be very careful. We've already seen guys go off in the Aguilera. That's exactly how Darling wants to do this. Nice and calm, not pushing the issue, waiting for the passes to come to him to be able to get through these GTEs.
A lot of times you'll see LMP2s make a dive down here into Variante Alta, but Darling is nice and patient. He actually used that opportunity to fuel save a little bit going into that corner. He's going to make the pass on Mo Islam, does that very cleanly. He's going to look to the inside, I think, of Steven Jeffrey. No, look at that. Steven Jeffrey decides to take the apex. Paul Darling has plenty of downforce to take the rest of the outside of the corner, puts him a little bit wide, loses a little bit of time, but saves a wreck.
Does indeed. Paul Darling showing us exactly how it is done compared to some of the insanity we saw earlier. But now he's able to get the added benefit of the draft, maybe able to do a little bit of fuel saving here as he tucks his way up behind. That's Wolishin up ahead of them, and Garcia right up ahead as well.
Oh, wow, that was a very risky maneuver on the outside of the exit of Tamburello, trying to make it around Garcia right there. So he's going to actually, you see how patient he's being behind our leader of the GTLMs right now, the GT Pros. That's Kevin Binkley, who actually decides to get out of the way of Paul Darling. So those are two leaders in class passing by one another. But now, actually, the battle for second place in the prototypes is starting to close in with the two second place and third place. This is Robert Tinsey and Billy Smith Jr., Billy Smith II, ducking through these guys now.
Yeah, this is that same battle we were following earlier for P4, P5. They're really having to cut through. Robert Tinsey being a little bit more aggressive than we saw Paul Darling doing. I think he knows that Billy Smith is breathing down his neck, so he wants to dispatch these guys as quickly as possible. That's Jeffrey and Slavanek right there ahead of them, trying to get it down into the curbs. There's that very, very careful fine line he's got to thread through the Variante Alta and not trying to use too much of the curbs.
Absolutely, and what was a half-second gap between Tinsey and Smith is now up to a second and a half, and that's just due to the traffic alone for these guys, so that's how much it's affecting them right now.
One thing to note back here, no changes in the top 5 in GT3s, but there is some damage to the splitter of Ryan Walsh. He clipped one of the curbs just a little bit too much, but it doesn't seem to be impacting his lap times too much. Walsh last lap still put on 0.3 of a second over Atterbury.
And Sai, you have an update on when we can expect pit stops from these prototypes?
The prototypes are going to be closer to around 20-21 laps on a fuel tank, but it depends, like I said earlier, about how early they decide to pit. These guys also might have picked up some damage early on the curbing, so that might be something to consider when they want to pit early and kind of get that damage fixed for the end of the race. The GTs will be pitting a couple laps after that. I've been told that they can pit around lap 23-24. They'll want to stretch that a little bit so they put in less fuel and kind of jump people ahead of them.
Oh my goodness, look at this. A four-way battle through Tulsa between Slavanek, Garcia, Mo Islam, and Roman Yolo. They all make it through safely somehow, but I can't believe how they pulled this off. This is Joe Stiefel up ahead, a slow GTD that they're trying to navigate, but here's Jeffrey and Slavanek as they're trying to sneak by, and there goes Jason DeVries trying to get by as well, trying to recover from his poor start. Oh, almost contact there.
It is breaking physics that they were able to do that. I have absolutely no idea how they did it, as there you see that's DeVries and Wolf getting on through into the Variante Alta. We've had a big lock up there behind.
That's Slavanek, who just locked it up going into Alta. He's now recovered, but he's got to slow down. He's going to have to serve, unfortunately. But goodness gracious, everybody. I can't believe everyone made it through there, through Tulsa especially. That was 4 wide coming on the exit of Tulsa. Here's the replay. Look at this.
Oh, it's just absolutely insane. There's that lockup coming through the Variante Alta. You see there Slavanek getting up and onto the grass. That's a slowdown penalty for him. One of the quirks of the iRacing system there. But the action never seeming to stop. The LMP2's officially caught all the way up through the GTEs and firing on through.
Yeah, there's quite a few battles going on throughout the track right now. We're looking right now at the battle between Christopher Pies and Slavanek, as they have a couple of cars separating them as well. They've got some GTEs that are going to come slicing through. This is Carbonneau, Haley, and O'Keefe, who are all battling for 8th position, trying to navigate through this. And wow, Chad, now we have all 3 classes battling one another.
Yeah, they're mixing it up further down in the back of the GT3 class with the other classes. The only battle really going on right now in GT3 is between Perry and Sherburne. They've been duking it out. We talked about these two about 10 or so laps ago, and they have not changed the gap at all. The only thing that I'm curious about up at the front of the GT3 field is they've spread out quite a bit. Kevin Santana, we saw him 2 weeks ago at Spa, the only driver to save enough fuel to make it on one stop. What can he do? What tricks can he pull out of the strategy bag today? See if he can go off strategy today. And there's a look back at the car.
Yeah, Kevin having a much calmer time than the rest of our field at the moment. He just currently crossed the start-finish line and is just going through Tamburello, but he's going to have to use all of his wits and strategy in order to close that gap, like you said.
Yeah, that lap rat racing car really looking good. This is over at Juliano now. Looks like he just went off track. We'll go to the replay here to see what happens.
Yeah, here's the replay, and there is just a little bit too hard on the brakes there going through the first turn of Ravazza 1, and that ended up put him in the clutches of DeVries and Romagnolo. It's very close between them, almost 3 wide as they go through the corner, and more contact between himself and Joshua Wolf. This is DeVries, Romagnolo, and Wolf line astern here as they cut through the GTD and GT Pro traffic.
And that is P9 that they are getting right into GTEs, but right ahead of them, that is your GTE leader of Kevin Binkley trying to slice their way through there. That's Troy Chungale that they're trying to get through. Can they thread the needle? It looks looks like DeVries is on through. Gonna try for Romagnolo. He's got it, but Joshua Wolf held up behind of the GTE leader of Kevin Binkley.
Yeah, but believe it or not, it looks like DeVries actually got the worst run off of the corner. Romagnolo looks like he got the worst run off of the corner, because Joshua Wolf, even though he was held up, is able to make a little bit of progress. That's DeVries slicing past Chris Sherburne and David Perry. This is the battle for 6th place in the GTD class. They're going to get separated just a little bit here as they go through Variante Alta, and this is just the give and take of multiplex.
It really is, and I have to give some massive credit there to Romagnolo. He is really, really being strategic with how he is passing these slower class cars. He is using them as picks as much as possible.
And we got to go back to Mo Islam, who just had a massive moment with about 10 other cars as they went through Variante Alta. Pretty much everyone was off track. Let's take a look at this.
So there's Islam right in the center of the track in that red and white. You see all of them coming up behind. Islam moves over back. Oh my goodness, one of the prototypes off, 2 of the GTEs off, 1 of the GTDs off, everybody going off for a spin.
Yeah, that was the 199 Robert Canshin, who went over the curbing on the inside of the first corner of Alta. Here we are on board with him. This is going to be a bumpy ride. And was that our leader in GTLM? I believe that was our leader, Kevin Binkley, who was up there. I think he was the one who went to the inside.
No, it was Guaracera. It's Guaracera. They have the same paint scheme, I believe.
All right, so it's a teammate. Yeah, there he is, Brandon Guaracera, who's had to go off to the inside of Alta to avoid all of that. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. You know, Adam, I talked about how these LMP2s don't like curbs. Well, clearly nobody told that to them, just taking a massive jump over them.
And there we see him once again with some LMP2 traffic they have to deal with as they go through Paratella. And look at that, that's a GTD who's having to go off track there. That's Ryan Robertson in 10th place GTD. These GTDs are just getting whipped a little bit here, Chad.
Yeah, Robertson still has a ton of damage. He was involved in an early incident off the start. About 2 laps in, he's able to recover, currently running about 10th in class, but he's still got a bit of a gap, about 2 seconds up the road to Sean Reese.
Apologies are coming quick and fast over the radio right now. I'm pretty sure everyone's made contact with somebody else at this point in the race.
Yeah, if there's a clean car by the end of this, Adam, I will eat my hat.
Mark Wilson currently off. We're going to see him appear on screen just right there, recovering. He outbraked himself just coming into the first turn of Rivazza. So no replay. We're not going to drop into the replay for that particular one. But my goodness, it's just complete chaos on track still, DJ. We're going to take a look at the battle between Sherburne. This is in the GTDs between Chris Sherburne and Chris Sherburne and David Perry for 6th.
Yeah, I've been watching this battle last couple laps. Last time through Rivazza, Sherburne peeked his nose to the inside. If you want to see a clean nose of a car, then Sherburne is the car to look at. He's kept it off the curbs, done a great job running his race, and he's getting runs on entry to corners on Perry every single time through. But it looks like Perry just has the straightaway speed. He can pull away, even with the slight splitter damage to the front left.
Yeah, there you see it. It's very close together, these two, the 6 and the 7. And, I mean, with all the chaos that's going on, I suppose you could probably just wait for something to happen to the car ahead of you. It's going to be a coin toss whether it happens to you or the car that you're trying to challenge, most likely.
That's been the fun thing watching that battle as we look now at the GTEs, the battle between Perry and Sherburne. And this is back. Wow, what a gaggle of cars there that we're having between prototypes and GTEs.
Yeah, we're going to stay right here because the action is very good between all these guys. This is a battle between 2 of our Porsche drivers, I believe.
Yes, it is. It's a battle really all the way up to 5th place. That's Christopher Pies, Mo Islam, Paul Slavinik, and Vince Bao pretty much running line astern here. Islam fell into the clutches of Christopher Pies. That allowed him to get on by, and Pies in turn really starting to close up behind Brandon Guaracera there as everybody's slicing and dicing, and I think we've got our first hitters.
Looks like Robert Canshin's in to repair that floor damage, I believe, Cy, and you have a couple more joining you. These are GTLMs.
Absolutely. It looks like these guys are the early pitters trying to get rid of some of that GT3 traffic and the P2 traffic that they're right in the mix of right then. Hopefully what they're thinking is by pitting a little bit early, all of the GT3s and all the P2s will go past them and they can come out right behind them, and that way they have the most, well, clean air isn't really found around this track, but as much as they can get, I suppose.
Oh, and David Warner's turned around backwards at Tulsa. How did that happen?
That was that battle between Perry and Sherburne. Perry caught right up to, Sherburne caught right up to Perry, and they were 3 wide with another LMP. As we go to the replay here, that was Sherburne in that yellow car and just squeezed it 3 wide. Could not make all 3 cars stick there.
Unfortunately, we saw one moment where in Tulsa it worked out, but that's not the norm for sure. So as we're taking a look right now, on board with Sherburne, as he's tucked in on the inside, he just can't get much more lock there. I think that's what ended up causing the incident. Back live on Chris Sherburne, currently down there in the 7th position. He unfortunately has lost about a second to David Perry, who he was battling with, Chad.
Yeah, thankfully that car still looks clean for Sherburne, while Perry does have that front splitter damage. Looks like he might have picked that up on some of the curbing out there, but overall, it looks like, especially through Tamburello in Villeneuve, the 135 machine of Sherburne able to close the gap, especially on braking, but then Perry gets it right back when they hit the throttle.
We're going to take a look once again at this battle that has been going on for the entire race between these GT pros. This is Brian Bennett, Vance Bow, and Marc-Antoine Thibault. Thibault's starting to fall off a little bit from these guys, but Vance Bow and Brian Bennett are still tucked up next to one another. They've got Christopher Pies only a couple seconds up the road.
Yeah, these guys have been keeping it all relatively contained and relatively clean compared to what we've seen the rest of the field doing, but a little bit of a pass up there, trying to work his way around where Sarah is Christopher Pies. That's so sleeking on through there.
Oh, very, very close between those guys. For sure, Christopher Pies trying to catch up to the back of Guaracera right now. Guarcia and Christopher Pies currently in 5th. Brandon Guarcia in 4th position, and that portion's starting to look a little bit tail happy. We know that the Corvette tends to get a little bit tail happy as well. These 2 guys have yet to take their pit stops. Remember, only our first pit takers have been in. That was Dino Topic and Olivier Turcotte, as well as the LMP2 of Robert Canchin. So and then actually Kevin Santana's into the pits in the GTDs, it looks like.
Santana was the big mover, the strategy man. He pulled something out of his bag, made the one stop happen at Spa, as I mentioned earlier. So he's going to take fuel, lose a bunch of spots here, but he should be good to go to the end. And I'm just about to mention in the GT3 class between Wash and Atterbury, that gap was about 3.2 seconds or so. It's only grown about 0.3 over the last about 10 to 15 laps. So overall, Wash and Atterbury basically matching each other lap for lap, as Santana dropped now down to 8th or 10th in class.
And here's that lap comparison between Wash and Atterbury that you were talking about, and there you can see the difference between Wash and Atterbury as far as the pace is concerned. So that's why we're seeing the gap continue to grow like you have mentioned. Looks like, Sai, you have 2 more visitors on pit road with you right now.
Yep, looks like Marc-Antoine Thibault and Aaron and Tilly are also on pit road. Maybe a couple laps later, maybe towards the end of their tanks. But now I think we're going to see a bunch more GTs come through the pits. Now we also have, looks like Mo Islam is also going by on pit road. Sorry, out around the outside of pit road. We'll see whether he comes out relative to these guys. He's going to get past pretty easily. But I think this is where he'll gain or lose time on the guys ahead of him. I think he's going to gain a couple of seconds just because of that smart pit stop.
Yep, so we've got Joe Steifel on pit road, as well as Ryan Robertson, who was on pit road, and Mark Schneidel also on pit road for the GTD class. So quite a few of the GTDs are on pit lane and exiting now. So this will break up quite a few of the battles that we've had on track, which will give everyone the well-earned breather, considering we've had so much chaos that's been going on track. So this will separate our battles just a little bit, but these guys are not done battling themselves. They've got a battle as they exit pit road now.
One thing to note in Santana's pit stop, he dropped down to 10th place. He's now got a battle catch up about 15 or so car lengths to Sean Reese, who's running 9th in class.
And that's in the GTM class that these guys are all doing. It looks like Joey Trunghill has decided to head to the pits as well. And looks like our leader is in the pit side.
Darling just came into the pits right now, and it looks like he's going to be the first one in, and it looks like everybody else is going to follow him in. I think all the P2s have gotten to the end of their fuel tank, except maybe Jason, who's known for pulling a little bit of extra fuel out of his car every now and then. Got to see how long he's going to stop and how long Tinsy, Billy, Luke, and Juliana are going to stay in their box as well. It's going to be above about, I want to say, 15-second stop, because that's what about Robert Kenshinen did during his stop. Sorry, 25 seconds is what I meant to say, not 15. And we're just going to be pulling away any second now. There he goes, 25.5 on the dot. I think Tinsy, Billy, and Juliana are going to do something similar. Now we got to watch out for the guys who haven't pitted yet. So Jason DeVries, Hardy Kundigger, Joshua Wolf, Luke Carbonneau, and Bradley Haley. They're going to have shorter stops. Now we got to make sure to see who they jump by going that lap extra.
And the big difference is going to be what the traffic is like on exit for all these guys who just took their pit stops. It's not going to be too bad for them. Oh, here's Darling, and wow, that was that was a little bit of a close maneuver there with the GTD, but he's definitely feeling very confident in that machine as far as the multi-class is concerned right now.
One big shakeup here, the GT3 class. Chris Sherburne worked his way up to 6th with his pit strategy, but he's starting to run out of fuel. He is short shifting every time, and surprisingly, he stays out. I thought that he was going to come in there. He's short shifting. He's trying to save fuel. It sounds like riding on board with him, but he's going to try and stay out one more lap. This is very risky for Sherburne.
Looks like Joey Atterbury has come into the pits and he's coming out right now. Mark Kudrowski has joined him. Kevin Santana did pit a couple of laps ago as well. So, yeah, you're right. Like, quite a few of our leaders are, in the GTD class are starting to come to pit road. I can report that Paul Lindsay also came into the pits, and now a decent amount of the rest of our LMP2s are inside.
Jason DeVries, Bradley Haley, all of them are in. Actually, Bradley Haley's going a lap longer. I take that back. Now we got to see if Jason has a shorter pit stop. I'm expecting around 23 seconds for him. So that's going to be a 2-second jump on everybody who pitted behind him. I have no idea how Bradley Haley is going 2 laps longer. Maybe he just was saving a lot of fuel when he was sitting behind that battle between Kevin O'Keefe and all those guys as well.
Well, unfortunately for them, Paul Darling and Jason DeVries have already gone by. So, unfortunately for them, they're going to be losing time on those guys. Jason DeVries actually just exiting pit lane now. So, Paul Darling and Billy Smith are currently our 2 leaders out of the pit lane for the LMP2s. Bradley Haley, like you said, is going around another time, and he'll be the only LMP2 left on track who has yet to pit.
GT3 leader in Ryan Wash, the top car in GT3s. He is the last car, one of the last cars to make a stop here. Ryan Wash he comes cleanly into his box. Drapeau is going to follow in right behind him. We're going to have to see how things shake out here, though, as Santana has a lot of ground to make up. He wants to get back to where he was running in 3rd.
And so you've got some GTLMs that are joining you now, it looks like.
I think now the rest of the GT LMs are coming in, I believe. Kevin Binkley, Ross Booth have stayed out, but Brandon Garcia and Dominic Dornberg have come into the pits now as well. I think this is that split strategy I was talking about earlier. I think we had the really early pit stop guys. Now we're having kind of the middle, and then we have the long runners out in front. I think they've kind of settled on their strategy now and kind of hoping that staying out longer kind of even out the traffic gains that the guys who pitted earlier got.
And that LMP2 that you're seeing is Bradley Haley, who's just now come in for his pit stop. So this will be the final pitter for the LMP2s, but he's quite a bit behind Paul Darling, who flashes by just outside of him right now. That was that red streak you saw at the bottom of the screen. Paul Darling resumes the lead of this race after the pit cycle.
Yeah, to the surprise of absolutely almost nobody, as that lap has just been absolutely stellar lap after stellar lap for Paul Darling. Billy Smith, a whopping 10 seconds behind him, so Darling just having to focus on up the road at this point.
Of the top 5 right now in the GT3 class, the only one that has stopped is Ryan Wash. He came out P2. He's actually dropped down to 4th now, it looks like, as he is working on his outlap. But Drapeau Perry, Sherburne, and Reese have all not stopped. They should be coming in, I think, in the next lap or so, as everybody else in class that's up near the top of this field has already stopped.
Well, it looks like Kevin Binkley and Paul Savanik have both come into the pits as well. These two very high runners in our GT Pro field. Binkley just now exiting the pit lane, as well as Slavonic, who's just recently hit his pit box and is now taking the fuel that is necessary to complete this stint. Out of the GT Pros, you have Ross Booth, Jeffrey, Pies, Bow, Bennett and Hunter, who have yet to pit. That's all of your top 6 right now who have yet to pit. It looks like it's Kevin Binkley who is the first driver on track of our pitters for the GTLM right now.
Yeah, looks like nobody really wanting to bite down too early on that middle strategy that Cy was talking about. Everybody wanting to see if they can stretch those fuel tanks a little bit longer, maybe to take a little less time in the box. We'll have to see how it plays out in terms of that traffic that has been absolutely so brutal around here. But there you watch our leader, Ross Booth, as he comes down towards Ravazza 1. Will he come in this time?
Another interesting point of order is that it looks like Giuliano Romagnolo has decided to call it a day, as we see Ross Booth coming into the pits. Romagnolo, oh wow! Ross Booth almost losing it coming into the pits. He hit it, but that was really close. He almost had too much rear brake bias on that thing, almost hit the outside wall.
We're going to jump back to a replay here to show you exactly what happened from his point of view. There you see slamming on the brakes. Oh, that's going to be very close. We're going to have to watch him in the box, see if he picked up a pit lane violation for maybe coming in a little bit too fast, but a lot of the other leaders coming in as well.
Yeah, Sign, you're keeping your eyes on those guys as they enter pit lane.
Absolutely. Looks like Ross Booth got away with that. He was just managed to get the car rode up there. Kevin Binkley's coming out of the final corner now, coming to the start finish. We got to see. Kevin had a 16.6 second stop. Ross Booth had a 13.7. I think Ross is going to beat him out. Maybe.
Sorry to break in, but Robert Canchin has had a spin at Ravazza 2. This was making contact with a GTD that was ahead of him. He's just now recovered, getting back onto the front straight, but he had some right front damage. Let's see a replay of this.
So there you see diving in, that's a GTD ahead of him, and that's a checkup, and that is exactly what forces Canchin wide. Just absolutely having to get on the binders. You see it here on board, and yep, just a little bit of a love tap there off to the left, but I think Canchin was already starting to spin, having to adjust his braking and steering input, having to check up behind those cars.
And sorry, I see Brian Bennett is taking a very long stop right now.
I'm not sure why. I think he may have picked up a speeding penalty on the way into pit lane. The way iRacing works, if you get a penalty coming onto pit lane and you take service while you're serving the penalty, it increases it. And he took about a 54-second stop, which is about in line with the 40 plus 15 seconds, 40-second penalty plus 15-second service.
David Perry did pit from P3. The top 3 still in GT3s have not pitted. Drapeau, Sherburne, and Reese. Then Ryan Walsh looks to re-inherit lead once those 3 cars stop.
Oh, remember that? Oh my goodness, we got a big wreck going on. That was Billy Smith, I believe, who spun in front of this entire pack of drivers that we just saw, and they're just now recovering from this. But Mo Islam is the biggest victim of that. He hit the inside wall very hard and is still recovering. Let's check out this replay.
Oh, and this was an absolute schmozzle if I've ever seen one, Adam. Just an absolutely brutal wreck. Billy Smith, as you said, I think he just got on the power maybe a little bit too early and caused the car to spin around on him, and that just stacked everybody up behind him.
Yeah, he got clipped a little bit, so and that's what caused the spin. So he got clipped by the GT Pro behind him. So he's now recovered, but he took a big shot to the right side. I expect that to knock down his top speed a little bit.
I think it will.
Oh, and Jason DeVries has just had a big moment going through Tamburello right now. He just went over the inside curves very hard. And he's now going to get passed by Billy Smith, possibly. Here comes Billy up the inside of Villeneuve. And look at this. DeVries is just going to let him go.
And that's Robert Tinsey coming in right behind him. We ride on board with Jason DeVries, now having to look at the back of that black and green car. But right behind them, that's Tinsey and Kundinger. Throw a blanket over these 4. This is the battle for P2.
Looks like Paul Slavonic is back in pit road because of that incident. This battle for P2 in the LMP2s is very tightly contested right now as they're navigating their way past Christopher Pies and Stephen Jeffrey, who are themselves battling for P4 and 5 in the GT Pro class. So that break is definitely over.
You can say that, and that's the big loser out of that entire thing is Christopher Pies. He was right up behind the tail of Jeffrey and forced to really, really fall back. But now Jason DeVries getting caught out behind Stephen Jeffrey here. That's not going to be great. He's able to get it down out of Variante Alta and start to go back after Billy Smith. There you see Tinsey trying to get around Kundinger as well. They're going to keep it all together, though, through Vatsa 1. Everybody nice and clean and tidy.
You're wondering how much that cost Jeffrey and Pies. It cost them about 3 seconds of lap time there, but this battle for oh no, Brian Bennett unfortunately has had a big issue. We're going to take a look at this replay. This is he was third place in GT Pro, I believe, and we've had a gigantic wreck. If we can actually stay on this when we come out of this with I believe this was David Warner. I'll have to take a look.
We're going to jump to it right here. This is the replay. Watching David Warner coming through. This is a big incident into Tamburello. Here you see it. We've had cars up on their toes. That's a GT3 that spins around. Nowhere to go. Oh, Warner gets collected in it.
They just get tangled up there, and it's like, you know, a moment of live art right there with everyone just stacked up like Jenga blocks on the apex of the corner. Everyone having to go through the infield.
I think that Jenga blocks is the absolute perfect analogy to any of that. And we've got to remember that some of those drivers that were forced to cut through the infield there, that may be a little bit of a slowdown. As up ahead, we see another LMP2 cutting it wide, but that's going to promote Carter Kundinger up to third place. Billy Smith, a loser out of that. He's down to fourth.
Yeah, okay, so because of all this chaos, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update here on the top three of each class. We got Paul Darling still leading in the LMP2s with Jason DeVries in second and Carter Kundinger in third, only 0.6 behind DeVries. Ross Booth still leads the GT Pro class up ahead of Kevin Binkley, who's been able to gain a little bit. He's only a second behind the leader right now. Then Brandon Guaracia, who got caught up in a couple of these incidents this last lap, is now 20 seconds behind Binkley. Then we get down to our GT AM class, where we have Ryan Wash, who is up quite almost a full lap, I believe, above Joey Atterbury in second position, with Kevin Santana. I stand corrected. Joey Atterbury's gap is only about 8 seconds. But we got to go back to DeVries and Kundinger because they're getting very close together as they duck through Aqua Minerale.
That's right. Jason DeVries got held up a little bit there by Gary Miller, and that's Joey Trungale right up ahead of them. Ooh, a little bit of a sketchy exit there for Jason DeVries. Had to catch the car ever so slightly, getting around that slower GT3. And here comes Kundinger looking to the inside, up into Piratella, thinks better of it, falls back. He loses a couple of tenths. That aggressive look at a move costing him some time.
Yeah, he thought he could scare DeVries there, but unfortunately nothing doing. DeVries, a very cool customer, just went straight for the apex. Kundinger having to back out of it. The jig wasn't really up there in that moment either. And we've got a nice battle for fifth position in the GT Pros as well between Pies and Thibault. These guys are insane. I mean, we just got action all over the track. We have no idea where to look right now.
Stick a camera anywhere.
GT3s, by the way, that 10-second gap from Wash to Atterbury, now down to about 6 or 7 seconds as Wash got caught up in a lot of traffic. Atterbury does have some room to push. He's got 10 seconds up behind Santana, and then Kudrowski and Drapeau, the big gainers. The big note there, Drapeau stopped about 4 or 5 laps later than anybody in class, really able to stretch that fuel. He's only in his third laps out of tires. We take a look at that beautiful car working right up the back of with David Perry right behind. That's right behind Kudrowski.
Yeah, Drapeau and Kudrowski battling for that fourth position. A beautiful battle between those two guys. But we do need to drop back once again for that battle for sixth position between Thibault and Bao. They're side by side as they head towards Tamburello. And a little bit of door-to-door contact between the two of them that pushes Thibault wide. Vance Bao claiming his spot on track, but it's going to hold up the cars behind. That's Paul Lindsay who gets held up a little bit, as well as Kevin O'Keefe, who's just been a little bit wrung out today.
And by the way, with all these great battles around the track, approximately 10 laps to go as we tick under 13 minutes remaining. Just some great racing, and oh my gosh, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chad, because I keep thinking to mention it, but I keep forgetting to mention it because the battles on track are just so exciting to watch.
It is absolutely insane to think about, but I want to bring your attention, Adam, to P1 for the GTEs as Kevin Binkley has caught Ross Booth. He is under 0.5 of a second as they start a new lap here. He is going to tuck right up behind the draft of that red and black Corvette and see what he can do.
The question is going to be where he's going to pick his moment to pass, and is he going to wait a little bit longer with 12 minutes to go? He's still got time on the clock. He might not want to give Ross Booth the opportunity to get by. Notice that he isn't really being super aggressive on his approach to turn one, not trying to challenge Booth into one. He's being very patient right now. The trouble is they've got that battle for second place in the LMP2s passing them right now.
You read my mind. Very aggressive late move there from Jason DeVries to dive up the inside of Kevin Binkley. That's a heart in mouth moment, and there comes Robert Tinsey on the way through. That's going to push Binkley ever so wide, but he's able to recover well and not lose a whole lot of ground to Ross Booth. So massive kudos there to Kevin Binkley for keeping cool and collected.
Yeah, that was a good move there from DeVries to get past Binkley with that aggressive move. It definitely gave Booth a boost there. Well, teammates on the same team, but here comes Tinsey. He actually ducks out of it before they head through Aqua Minerale. That's probably a good move because I think Kevin Binkley would have taken the apex regardless of if Tinsey was there. But this battle for the top position in GT Pro is going to come down to the wire unless the LMP2 traffic breaks it up again. That's Tinsey going through right now, 4th place in the LMP2s.
Exactly. The LMP2s are going to start to come back through here, and I really think that Kevin Binkley was definitely thinking about making a pass through Agua Minerale or maybe into Variante Alto, but decided better of it because those LMP cars. There you see, he's very, very smooth on the inputs. Little bit of an opposite lock coming out of Robotza 2, but that first part of the corner, nice and easy. Now he's tucked up behind. Keep an eye on that rev limiter. See if he lifts a little bit.
He's definitely not pushing as hard as he possibly could right now. He's taking as much draft as he can, but he's not giving the maximum attack that he possibly can. But one thing we need to go back and look at is that battle for the 5th position between Christopher Pies and Marc-Antoine Thibault, as well as Vance Bow and Paul Lindsay. That battle for 5th position, those 4 cars that we've been watching all race still tucked up nose to tail.
These guys are just super glue. You can't get them off one another. As there you see running line astern there, they are just flying down the main straight. That's Pies, Thibault, Bow, and Lindsay in a line trying to get something doing. They're getting up past some slower GTDs ahead. That's going to be a little bit of a problem for some of these guys behind. You don't want to catch them there through Tamarillo.
They're going to be able to navigate as they exit through turn 4. Exit of Tamarillo, they're going to head down to Villeneuve, and they're going to, it looks like at least one of those is going to be able to duck to the inside. Oh, they're going to get held up as they go through Tamarillo, as they go through Villeneuve. That almost, oh, it does cause a wreck. The GTD's off.
Not entirely sure who that was. I'm trying to check it back. It's one of our Lamborghinis. Looked like a green and black machine. Chad, do you know who that was?
Yeah, it was Joey Trungale that went off there. He was running towards the back of the pack. He was 10th and 11th in class, and unfortunately, he's going to lose a couple more spots from there.
We're taking a look at the battle between Billy Smith and Joshua Wolf. This is for the 5th position in the LMP2s. Joshua Wolf with a great run as he ducks to the inside of Tamburello, and he's going to very cleanly get that pass done. Billy Smith looking like he's going to give it to him just a little bit here. But wow, oh, look at this. Billy Smith actually thinking about coming back at him. Is he going to try and make a move up the inside of Villeneuve? No, he's going to wait.
I think Billy Smith may be dealing with a slight bit of floor damage. We've seen that black and green machine taking some very aggressive liberties through the course of this race over the curbs and things like that, and that looked like it was what was showing up there going through Tamburello. You see just how squirrely, though, both cars are off the line. Both of these cars obviously suffering damage over the course of the race.
Both these cars really trying to recover right now as they continue to go. I want to take our attention up to Jason DeVries and Carter Kundinger, who still have been inseparable in those LMP2 machines. These two guys battling for the second place, for the last two podium spots right now, figuring out who's going to get that silver and bronze trophies for today, or I guess the second smallest and the smallest trophies if you're F1 drivers right now. Carter Kundinger and DeVries battling, and they've been battling most of the day as well.
They have. We're ticking down now, under 8 minutes to go here at Imola. You can really see just how good Kundinger is on the brakes, though. Struggling a little bit on corner exits. The rear end's getting a little slippy there, so not maximizing where he needs to, but if he gets this right, he may be able to be late enough on the brakes to get a pass.
It might be just a little bit too far back, I think, at this point to catch up to DeVries, even though DeVries seems to have a little bit of trouble at the very top of the speed charts, of the speed ladder right now. Kundinger still staying within reach, but we're going to go back to Joshua Booth and Kevin Binkley, as they're continuing to have a very close battle.
And Binkley's got a good run here. If he wants it, he's going to be a little far back, but he definitely has the speed off the corner to try to maximize if he wants to do it. I think he's short shifting ever so slightly, doesn't want to make that attack too early. Like you said, Adam, he knows the speed that Booth has, and he doesn't want to give him the opportunity to fight back.
Trouble is they've got David Warner coming up behind them, about a second behind. He's going to catch them as they come up to Piratella, so unless they can let him go through easily, Ross Booth is not going to want to let Warner get through these two guys, and Kevin Binkley is going to hope that he makes it past both of them. Here comes Warner up to the back of them. This could separate this battle if Warner decides to go for the apex. He just thinks better of it and stays behind. He's going to have to pass them all the run down to Aquamarella.
Kudos to Warner there. Is he going to try to do it? If he does it here, no, he does not. He lets that battle play out. Very, very smart from Warner. He could probably... it takes way too much curve. Gets very, very all over the place. Barely able to recover the car, and that's going to avoid any...
Look at this. Marc-Antoine Trumeau, Vance Bow, Christopher Pies, and Paul Lindsay. Vance Bow making a very aggressive move down to the apex of Tosa. They're going to go side by side. They're going to bang doors as they approach Piratella. They go side by side through the corner. This is often bad for the person on the outside, but Pies able to stay with it. That's Paul Lindsay who's looking on the inside. Vance Bow coming out to the outside of the track. Vance Bow's going to cut across Pies' nose, take that position, but then a bump into the back of Vance Bow sends him off track. Christopher Pies takes 5th position. Paul Lindsay takes 6th.
We're going to jump back on a replay here. This is what happens, Adam, when you try to go too wide through Agua Minerale. There you see, just tries to get on the binders a little bit, and it doesn't work out and sends him spinning.
Oh, but we got to go back to the lead, the battle for the lead, because Ross Booth and Kevin Binkley are getting really, really close right now. They got held up by Kevin O'Keefe, who just went through Ross Booth, trying to make the positions right now. Kevin Binkley trying to shake Ross Booth's confidence. He actually makes Ross Booth take a little bit of a shallow line to the corner, but they actually get held up ahead between Kevin Binkley and David Warner. Looks like David Warner's got a little bit of damage that he's trying to deal with. Here comes Binkley around the outside of Booth as they go into Tosa. He's going to try and do the over-under here, but Ross Booth gets a good run off the corner. He's got the draft from Sean Reese's head as they head towards Piratello.
And I don't think this is going to end well. Whoa, Booth on a super late move down the inside. Binkley follows him. Binkley trying to stay behind. They're going to be neck and neck going at Agua Minerale. Here comes Binkley to the inside. Thinks better of it. Dives back down. Does not want to make the same mistake that we saw a lap ago from the guys back in 4th and 5th. They're going to stay single file for now.
Unbelievable stuff at the lead of this field between Ross Booth and Kevin Binkley as these guys separate just a little bit. They're going to have Chris Sherburne and David Perry that they're going to have to deal with. These two guys battling for 6th and 7th in class. This is going to hold them up quite a bit, actually, as Ross Booth and Kevin Binkley start to go to battle once again, but it looks like they're going to be able to get past clean.
They're going to be able to get past clean, but that's going to cost him time. You've got to clear that before you get to Ravazza, boys. Binkley down the inside of Sherburne. That's going to cost him a couple of valuable tenths. He's not going to be able to get the angle he wants to out of Ravazza, too. Little bit of a wiggle there. That indeed cost him a couple of tenths. Advantage Booth for now.
Well, now that we have a break from that, we're going to take a look at Mark Kudrowski and Eric Godroja Poe as these two guys, teammates, as they're battling for 4th and 5th position in the GTDs, Chad.
They finally swapped positions. Kudrowski got a little bit fresher tires there on Kudrowski by about 3 laps, but just overall, both that battle and the battle right behind them that we were just looking at between Sherburne and Perry. The only battles in class right now as it's still Wash, Atterbury, and Santana.
Oh, and there goes Sean Reese off in the background. This was Chris Sherburne, David Perry, and Sean Reese who were battling with one another. You see Sean Reese off and Joe Stiefel, who had his own self-spin. We're going to take a look at this replay. I think he just outbraked himself into the corner, Chad.
Yeah, just getting a little too deep on the brakes and losing the back end. I think he might have clipped the grass. He did get a little too wide on entry, clipped the curb, then the gravel, spun the left rear around, and just right back into traffic.
We're going to have to take our attention back up to the lead of the GT Pro class. Ross Booth and Kevin Binkley, they have quite a bit of breathing room now. They won't have any sort of interference from a LMP2 for the rest of this lap. So Kevin Binkley has an opportunity to set up Ross Booth once again, and Ross Booth has every opportunity to defend.
He does, but Binkley got a little bit too wide there on the exit of Variante Alta. Not exactly able to get the exit that he wants to, but we've seen him have some decent power here out of Ravazza 1 and 2. Gets a little bit of a smoother line, almost onto the grass there, trying to take every single bit of track that he can, maximizing the power. He's now going to tuck it behind in the draft. He's starting to squirrel around a little bit, making Booth think about it. What's he going to do going down into Tamarello?
He's going to try and take a look at the inside, but I think he's just a little bit too far back. This is 2 to go this time, I believe, for these drivers. So this is absolutely the time to make the move. They've got Luke Schmidt up ahead. This is a slow GTD currently in 12th position in the GTD class that they're going to have to navigate through as they come up to Tosa. They're approaching Villeneuve right now as they duck through the quick turns of 5 and 6 here at Imola. They're going to have to make their way through, and looks like, I believe Luke is going to take the apex. This is going to hold up Ross a little bit. If Kevin Binkley can set up a good exit, he might have an opportunity as they come to Piratella.
He is, but that's a good move from Booth, using a little bit of a pick, but it's not going to dispel Binkley at all. Binkley to the inside, going up Piratella. He's going to stick back in line, though. Tries to get a better run down in Agua Minerale. We've seen him try to do something here before. He's got a better line. He's going to the outside. Booth cuts him off right in the middle of the track. Good move from Ross Booth to hold him off. Both drivers getting the car slowed down for that tricky right-hander. They're going to come back up the hill into Variante Alta.
Oh, we're going to take a look at P2 in the LMP2s, because look at this. Carter Kundinger and Jason DeVries going side by side. DeVries is able to make it through. I believe this was precipitated by a moment up ahead, but Jason DeVries is very slow on track.
Did he get a slowdown there, Adam? I think he may have cut the track ever so slightly.
I think he might be out of fuel. He's losing a lot of time right now. Here we go, taking a look at the replay. He just falls back. I think he's out of fuel.
I do have confirmation from Cy down on pit road. Thanks to the report, Cy. He is out of fuel. And that's just unfortunate so late in the race. We're coming to the white flag this time by, I believe.
White flag has been taken by our leader, Paul Darling, currently 18 seconds up the road from Carter Kundinger, but the battle for the lead in the GT Pros is just too good to step away from these guys currently. Very close together right now. The clock ticking down. It is the white flag lap. Kevin Binkley has to get it done now.
He does, and that's Leif Peterson right there behind them in the LMP2, currently sitting in P8 in that class. So they've got to try to figure out how to navigate that. Leif not wanting to get too involved in this. Both cars very late on the brakes, taking a late apex there through Tosa. They fly up through the hill. We have seen Binkley be aggressive here, but here comes Peterson. That's going to check him up ever so slightly, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a check up there from Booth as well. Booth shut down at the apex. Here comes Binkley.
Let's see whether Binkley makes a move here into Aqua Minerale. He's going to look to the outside once again. Ross Booth's going to cover him up. A little bit of contact there between Matt Owens and Leif Peterson. This is going to hold up Booth significantly. Binkley tries to do the over-under on the exit of the corner, but Ross Booth's got the momentum. He's going to be able to cut off Binkley as they head towards Variante Alta.
It's now going to be who's later on the brakes, and it looks like it is Ross Booth. Ross Booth holds him off. Binkley running very wide on the exit there, trying to take every bit of the track he can. He's got 2 more corners to try to make this work.
And we might actually be wrong, because Paul Darling's actually behind these guys on track. We'll keep our eyes out. But Kevin Binkley and Ross Booth now battling. That's a slow Mark Schneidel on the exit of the corner. Kevin Binkley, here they come on the exit. Is this the final lap for these guys? Look at this, Ross Booth into the pits. Kevin Binkley's going to cross the line, and regardless of whether this is the final lap or not, Binkley is going to be able to go one more lap further. But Paul Darling, a commanding win for him, leading the field from start to finish with a great qualifying effort, and 18 seconds, almost 20 seconds in the lead of Carter Kundinger, comes home and takes the win at Imola.
And this is back in GT3s. This is Wash. Got a long way still to go, but it's going to be Wash. He's got a 14-second gap out the back towards Atterbury, and then Santana only battles for fourth in class.
And look at this, Tinsey and Wolf making side-by-side contact as they battle for third and fourth position. Major contact between those two. It looks like Wolf is going to get it, but that'll be contested.
Hearing a little bit of angry words on the radio right now. There is not a happy camper at Robert Tinsey. There you see a little bit of shove in the back.
A lot of unhappy people, but there's one driver still running around on track who's going to try and make it home. Ryan Wash, as he comes across the line, shouts, such a good race from him.
He made the strategy calls perfectly, started out front, ran the entire way out front, about a 12-second lead back to Atterbury, and then Santana about 10 seconds behind him. Looks like, did Drapeau have an issue? It looks like Drapeau dropped way back behind. He was just neck and neck with Katrowski earlier in the lap, but he must have had something go wrong for him as he's now well behind in the field.
But here's Kevin Binkley coming out of the final turn, able to make the fuel work when Ross Booth couldn't. Kevin Binkley comes home with the win in the GT Pros. Here's Mark Schneidel and Owens as they are trying to cross the line, trying to sort out who's going to get 10th. That's Mark Schneidel who's going to get 10th in the GT AM class. Oh my goodness.
And Drapeau has run out of fuel. He's lost this position to Sherwin. He was running 5th and he lost the spot, so he's going to drop well back in the field.
So Drapeau just crossed the line in 7th position for those GTD, for the GTM class. That was, wow, everything happened. It was chaos on track. It was chaos in the multi-class. We have fuel strategy as well. Unbelievable stuff. And here's the replay of Drapeau running out.
Yeah, he lost 2 positions on that last lap, and he is just sputtering the entire way down to the line here.
Well, as we try to catch our breaths here, we're going to take you to a short break, but we're going to have the very unofficial results and some post-race interviews after this. Trust me, don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss this.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no
welcome back to the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge here at Imola. And oh my goodness, this was one of the most crazy races I think I've ever commentated here on GSRC. But coming home with the uncontested win is Paul Darling, 20 seconds, nearly 20 seconds ahead of Carter Kundinger, who finishes in second. Joshua Wolf comes home in third with Robert Tinsey in fourth position and Billy Smith in fifth. Man, every one of these positions has been swapping over and over the course of this race. Bradley Haley comes home in sixth spot with Jason DeVries running out of fuel on the final lap, coming home in seventh. Luke Carboneau recovers actually pretty decently well from his particular incident, coming home in eighth, with Kevin O'Keefe coming home in a solid ninth. Actually, I noticed he mentioned they didn't finish a race at Imola up to this point. Good to see him finish in the top 10 today. Leif Peterson comes home in 10th in the LMP2s, with Mark Wilson 11th and David Warner coming home in 12th.
Lining up in the first place for the GTEs today was Kevin Binkley, his closest competitor Ross Booth, who led through the majority of the race, running out of fuel, having to duck into the pits. So very, very bad heartbreak there for Ross. Brandon Garciera right there behind them in third in class, followed by Stephen Jeffrey and Marc-Antoine Thibault. Christopher Pies, Paul Lindsay, and Vince Bow making up 6th, 7th, and 8th. That was an intense battle that we saw throughout the entirety of the race. Mo Islam coming back in 9th, followed by Eric and Tilly and Shane Hunter behind them. Olivier Turcotte in the spots behind them, followed by Dominic Dorningberg and Dino Topic.
And finally, wrapping up the GT3 class, Wash took the victory, started from the pole, but not a lot of points were traded hands between the top three, because it was Wash, Atterbury, and Kevin Santana wrapping up the podium. Then Kedrowski and Sherburne wrapping up the top 5. David Perry in 6th, Drapeau in 7th, and then Sean Reese was 8th in class. Then followed by Dale Green and Mark Schneidel, followed by Matt Owens, Luke Schmidt, Joe Stifel, and Sheldon Woloshin in 14th in the GT3s.
The rest of the drivers you see had some significant issues or pit problems, but we're going to talk to our winner today, Paul Darling. Now, Paul, you had a very commanding lead throughout most of this race. What do you think made the difference today? Was it how you navigated traffic, or do you just think you had better pace than everybody?
I think today was one of the very strange times where I seemed to have pace on the field, which is very unusual because it's a very competitive, high-quality field we have here at the front. So it's pretty unusual for me to have pace like that, but I think it just kind of showed the whole race, but it was able to come through clean.
Absolutely, Paul, and you had a fantastic race throughout, but talk to me about the traffic. It seemed like a lot of people were getting caught up, catching people at bad times throughout. How tough is this track with the traffic?
Track was absolutely insane. If I didn't have the comfort of the pace I had, I would have had to take more risks, which would have been way more dangerous. This is not a track where you can dive in late on, and I got caught in a few lap traffic battles with some back-end prototypes, and I actually lost like 8 seconds or something, and it's just, I was lucky that I had some pace today so I could afford to be patient.
Yeah, and Paul, I mean, you're continuing your pattern of win or struggle to finish, it seems like, out here. But what do you think you're gonna continue? How well do you think you're gonna do in the rounds going forward? Do you think you're gonna be able to challenge for the championship even after the bad luck you had in rounds 2 and 3?
I sure hope so. Time will tell. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have that kind of pace advantage the rest of the season, because that's very unusual. So I think it'll be a very close fight for the championship in the end here.
Well, Paul, congrats on your 3rd win of the season, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Road America.
Thank you very much, guys.
That was Paul Darling, our winner in the LMP2, the prototype class, and it looks like we've caught up with Kevin Binkley. That's going to be DJ talking to Kevin, who won the GT Pros.
Kevin, an absolutely intense battle for a lot of that race with Ross, and I heard you pop on the radio and sort of bemoan that he had to come into the pits. Talk me through the emotions of that last lap, kind of knowing that the win was going to come your way.
Yeah, I felt bad. I was like, if we're going to battle, I'd rather finish second and have a battle like that than take a win because of fuel mileage. But, that's part of it. We have a pit. and it's all part of the strategy. So a win, I'll take it. I was kind of hoping for a nice, easy drive for once. I got the pole. I got even 3 seconds on him at one point in time, but every time I would get out in front, there would be some traffic situation, or Ross would just play it right, and there it goes again, a battle all the way to the end.
And talk a little bit about that. I mean, being the sort of the meat in the sandwich of this this multi-class field, having to look both ahead and behind at what you're passing. I mean, we saw guys going 4 wide into Tosa. It just looked like absolute insanity out there. How do you handle that as a driver and manage to stay calm and keep a battle going?
It's not easy. I love chasing versus being in the lead. Just because I can really time my passes, find out what the leader does and what holds him up, and adjust my braking and facilitate passes that way. But when you're leading, you feel like you need every little bit of advantage possible. So you feel bad at the GTD cars because you end up making moves that you normally wouldn't, just because you're trying to break that gap in that draft. And then, of course, you see the headlights of the prototypes in your rearview mirror, and you're doing the same thing. You're like, okay, where can I let him by that's going to lose me the least amount of time? And then the worst case scenario, of course, you get GTD and prototypes and us all in the same corner, and it's just, you basically hold your line and hope for the best. And the good news is we've got a lot of good drivers that you can trust around you to race fair and give room.
I'll give you credit on that. It was truly a delight, as crazy as it was, to just recognize the respect that you guys have for one another. It makes our job a lot of fun to be able to watch it. But so I have to sort of ask about long term here. I think if my calculations are right, this may move you up to the lead of the championship. Obviously, hopefully going to a less chaotic race next time out at Road America. Any places you're looking forward to as we go along that you think you can start to stretch this out, or any places you think Ross can claw you back?
I don't know. I thought this was going to be, since this was a high downforce track, finally, this was going to be able to see where everybody goes. But honestly, it's just Ross and I end up finding each other on track no matter what the course is. And Ross is really good at getting those bonus points. So even though last week I won, I still didn't get the points lead because he got pole. So this week I got pole, and I think fastest lap as well. So I'm trying to do everything I can to edge it out because Ross is right there with me no matter what. So I have a feeling, regardless of the track, regardless of where it is, we're going to find each other on track, and it is going to be crazy.
Well, I know if the pass rounds have been any indication, that I can't wait to see what you guys continue to do over the course of the season. But congratulations again on a well-deserved win, and anybody you'd like to thank on your way out.
Definitely all the drivers in this league. I mean, a race like today, respect is big, and I want to thank all the guys out there for doing their thing. Of course, you guys for doing the broadcast, doing an amazing job. And my dad, he loves watching these things after the race, so I definitely want to thank him for tuning in all the time.
I love that, man. Well, Kevin, congratulations once again, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, and now Chad has caught up with our winner in GTD, the one and only Ryan Wash.
Ryan, congratulations on your first win of the season, but we have to take it all the way back to the start where you got the pole by almost 0.7 of a second. Tell us about that qualifying lap.
I don't know. Just to put it, just the last 2 weeks in general have just been fantastic for me, and this was just a great cap to it. I'm going to be honest with it. This is not one of my favorite tracks at all. I hate it. Genuinely hate it, especially in multi-class racing, and I think that pure just anger and driving is what really got me to get that Q lap and then be able to get out and hold that lead in the race. So
yeah, you got off to you started from the pole, you got off to a really good jump over Santana and Atterbury, and you really never looked back. It didn't look like you were too challenged at any point there in the race. I think it was about 10 or so seconds there at the end, but any thoughts on how the competition has gone? Because sure, you might have won the race, but you're still finishing on the podium with the two guys that are right in front of you here in the championship.
Yeah, so unfortunately last week I decided to sit Spa, or not last week, 2 weeks ago at Spa, I decided to sit it out because I was on vacation, and I came back and I had no practice and I didn't want to wreck the field, so I just decided, hey, I'll take one of the drop weeks, come back here, and I think the car change just really played into my hands. I drove the Merc for like a long time before switching to the Audi, so moving back to the front engine cars definitely gave me a much better feel, and I was very happy with it. And I'm actually glad to not have a Lambo train up front or an Audi train up front, so that's nice.
Yeah, and you mentioned sitting out last week. You've got a fourth, a second, a fourth, now a win. Looking forward to Road America next race. Any thoughts on that track coming forward?
Road America is one of those ones that I'm comfortable with, so I'm also comfortable with Daytona and Le Mans, and I made mistakes with not unchecking tires, and that's what put me off the podium in those races. So I've made a vow for myself to never take tires again in this league, so we'll see. Just got to remember it, especially when we have the 90-minute races and we're doing 2 stops. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the second half of the schedule than I am the first half, because there's not very many tracks I favored in the first half. So hopefully I, build on this performance and keep going.
Your first win here in the Autobahn Series this season, behind in points right now, but behind Santana Atterbury, but for Lap Rats Racing and DMG United respectively for them. You're the top privateer here in this in class in this series. What's it like kind of racing on your own out there?
Definitely not ideal. I'd prefer to have the wisdom of a better driver. I had the opportunity to join a few teams, but they didn't pan out. And it's nobody else's fault. Not even my fault. It was just circumstance. But I think we're kind of done with the tracks where you really have an advantage if you have teammates in different classes, Le Mans being one of the big ones with qualifying. But yeah, it's definitely that wisdom is what I'm missing out on, and hopefully I get it next season.
All right. Hey, we'll wrap things up here, Ryan, but last but not least, we'll let you go. Anybody you want to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank my girlfriend, Reagan. She actually watched this race, so you're good luck. Just remember that. And then I also want to thank MF Racing Designs. If you're in the market for new paint, check out MF Racing Designs on Facebook. Michael is a great painter, very passionate about what he does, and he loves painting my cars. I know, and he loves painting all the other cars too. So definitely give him a look. And then at IV_2go on Twitter. There's a link to sign up, and he'll send out his weekly picks for Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR.
Well, congratulations to you, Ryan, on your first win of the season here in the Autobahn Racing Series. As we send it over to, I believe, Adam? Or no, sorry, Cy. You have Carter Kundinger here.
Well, Carter, I think this might be your best finish in the series so far. How do you feel finishing second?
How, I guess, is the word I can describe that. No, I mean, honestly, it's great to be back up on the podium. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, that race honestly it was nuts. The traffic was just insane, and I guess, I mean, qualified about mid-pack P10, and just everything kind of seemed to just go my way tonight with the setup and traffic and just the casualties in front of me. So yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm shocked that I finished second after that race.
Absolutely. You qualified 9th and you finished second. I think that puts you in the biggest mover in terms of prototypes. I think you were just the most consistent guy on track today. I think everybody else just fell off the road ahead of you. You had great pace, and you were definitely keeping Jason honest at the end there before he had his fuel issues. But I think, how did you feel? Like, were you dealing with traffic differently than they were? Just taking it a little bit safer?
I mean, really, all it just seemed to be was a lot of the tighter sections, all the prototypes ahead of me would catch traffic there and just kind of stay in their line and take the slow line through there. And especially coming out of like that first section of chicanes, I seem to honestly just play it right, wait for the GTs to take their wide line and shoot to the inside. I had a moment there where I ended up going from, I think, about 10th to 7th, just coming out of that first chicane section, solely because of that. And yeah, I mean, it was really weird because especially around the first pit stop time, like I kept running consistent lap times, and all of a sudden I could see I was actually gaining time to basically everyone except for Darling. And I mean, yeah, I think consistency was definitely one of the keys to tonight. for my second place. But I mean, yeah, I guess consistency does get you pretty far sometimes.
Rawlings said something similar about taking his time through traffic and sort of playing the long game. He did say he had about a 15-second buffer to work with, but you didn't, so that's even more impressive in my books. Carter, great race today. Is there anybody or anything you want to thank before you head out?
Yeah, well, first thank my team, AOD Racing. All the guys there. I mean, I have a blast with all those guys. We just got done doing the Daytona 24 a few weekends ago, and although our car didn't finish, we still had fun while doing it. And obviously, thanks to Luke, Dom, and Mo for joining me in the team for this series and for other leagues. Basically all week, all month. We find stuff we enjoy and we just keep running it and having a lot of fun with it. So, definitely those two for sure. And you guys, of course, for broadcasting and doing such an awesome job.
Thank you. That was Carter Kundinger, finished second in prototypes.
And now we're catching up with Luke Carbonneau, who finished in 8th position. Luke, unfortunately not the greatest day for you as far as the running was concerned, but it's definitely not the worst finish you've had on track. But talk to me about the traffic, because it seemed like that ended up holding up a little bit today.
Well, I gotta be honest. For multi-class races, I'm sorry to say that, but this is the worst track that we can go to do a multi-class. Guys, we have watched the F1 race in November. We knew that it was totally a mess to see the F1 car there. It was completely, nearly impossible to do a move on someone, and to bring the series here. Even it's hard because the level of competition is high. And when you're putting the series on track where it's really hard to pass even someone in the same class, it's been really tough.
Yeah, it definitely has. And fortunately, next week you guys are heading to Road America, which is a little bit better. But what are your thoughts heading into that race next week?
Well, I hope that someone's is not gonna hit me after only 6 laps when you try to pass a GT3. That's really gonna be appreciated at this point. And hoping to just have a good race, clean race with all the drivers in the LMP2, and hoping that maybe some drivers in the Moradna is going to be more clean to try to pass some other drivers on the racetrack.
Well, unfortunately, Luke, we got to close up right now, but is there anyone you want to thank for your top 10 finish today?
Well, I just want to thank my teams. Have been a huge support, even the both TMC team with Robert Kenshin and Mark Wilson. They helped me a lot with the setup, so thanks, guys, and thanks for the Frenchy team with Olivier, Marc-Antoine, and Eric.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Luke, and congrats on the 8th place finish, and we look forward to seeing you next round. That was Luke Carbonneau, our 8th place finisher in the prototype class, and that is going to close us out for today. We want to give a big thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts. They're going to be listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen to jump onto her Bandcamp and see more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sean, Chad, DJ, Cy, and Dougie. If you want to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find us at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Gram. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. The link is in the description below. And if you want to see more racing action, and who wouldn't after that race, hit that big red subscribe button as well, so you won't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. As just mentioned with Luke Carbonneau, Road America is the next stop for these guys. It's Monday, February 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and if this race is any indication, you're not going to miss that one. We also will have upcoming races for other great series listed on our screen, so check those out and mark them down in your calendar. But until then, we hope you've enjoyed joining us as much as we've enjoyed bringing this racing to you. We hope to see you back on our channel soon. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.